Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, greetings and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. This is our first live show in 4 weeks. We had a tape show hiatus as I traveled around, but we have a good show for you tonight. As you can see right here, Nikki D. Dank, our Miss Gates, is here ready to talk about indoor social clubs. Over on the other side of me is Mr. Casper Leach and Don Skacki, who's working at an active club, the Northwest Cannabis Club. And then over in the wings, we're happy to welcome back Mr. Mark Shark, who will be playing at our Hempstock Festival on September 24th and 25th. And he'll be playing some music right after our news. We've got an extremely jam-packed hemp news segment for you tonight. We'll be taking your phone calls a little later. We have a couple of videos from our friend Jorge Cervantes. And before that, though, we will bring on, as we always do, our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, one of the best pieces of news over the past month is that out of San Francisco, California, our Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled favorably for medical marijuana patients. Now, federal officials are not permitted to engage in criminal prosecution of those who are engaged in activity related to medical marijuana, absent evidence that the defendants are in clear violation of state law, according to a unanimous ruling by a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The ruling broadly interprets a 2014 federal budgetary amendment prohibiting the U.S. Justice Department from spending any funds, quote, to prevent states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of medical marijuana, end quote. Members of Congress renewed the provision in 2015. According to Judge Diarman F. O'Scanlan, who wrote from the panel, he wrote, quote, if the Department of Justice wishes to continue these prosecutions, appellants are entitled to evidentiary hearings to determine whether their conduct was completely authorized by state law, by which we mean that they strictly complied with all relevant conditions imposed by state law on the use, distribution, possession, and cultivation of medical marijuana, end quote. The judge opined that Congress could lift the spending ban at its discretion because the provision was enacted as an amendment to an annual spending appropriation. Congress must restore the measure each year in order for it to remain in effect. Out of Phoenix, Arizona, voters will decide this November on a statewide ballot measure to legalize and regulate the adult use and retail sale of cannabis. The Arizona Secretary of State's office has confirmed that initiative proponents, the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, submitted sufficient number of signatures from Arizona registered voters to qualify the measure for the November ballot. A Maricopa County judge also dismissed a lawsuit that sought to prohibit the measure from going before voters, although initiative opponents may seek to further litigate the matter before the state Supreme Court. Proposition 205 in Arizona permits adults to legally possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana flowers or 5 grams of marijuana concentrates and cultivate marijuana up to 6 plants for their own personal use. And it establishes licensing for commercial production and retail sale. Commercial for-profit sales of cannabis will be subject to taxation, while non-commercial exchanges of marijuana will not be taxed. So you can give it away for free. Similar adult use measures will appear on the ballot this November in California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Nevada. A medical marijuana initiatives are going to be on the ballot in Arkansas, Florida, Montana, and North Dakota. Missouri statewide initiative seeking to regulate the plant's medicinal use is in litigation. An Oklahoma medical marijuana measure has collected sufficient signatures to qualify for the ballot, but is awaiting a final review by the Oklahoma State Attorney General. And another initiative has been held up in Michigan for full adult legalization. Down in California, nearly 2 in 3 California voters support the establishment of a state-regulated retail market for the sale of marijuana to adults, according to polling data compiled by the Institute of Government Studies at the University of California at Berkeley. 64% of the respondents agree, quote, marijuana should be legal for adults to purchase and use recreationally with government regulations similar to the regulation of alcohol, end quote. Support is strongest among those between the ages of 18 to 24 with 75% support, and Democrats with 74% support, and African Americans who support it by 72%. Those between the ages of 25 to 34 registered 71% support, and Latino voters registered 69% support. And among that hard demographic for marijuana legalization, those voters over the age of 65 years, 58% of California voters over 65 back this legalization measure. The polling data bodes well for the passage of California's Proposition 64 this November. The statewide initiative permits adults to legally grow up to 6 plants and possess personal use quantities of cannabis, up to 1 ounce of flower or up to 8 grams of concentrate, while also licensing commercial cannabis production and retail sales. The measure prohibits localities from taking action to infringe upon adults' ability to possess and cultivate cannabis for non-commercial purposes or personal use. The initiative language specifies that it is not intended to, quote, repeal, affect, restrict, or preempt laws pertaining to the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, or the marijuana law, medical marijuana law, which is a good thing. Proposition 64 in California is endorsed by the ACLU, the California Democratic Party, the California Medical Association, California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, and the California NAACP, and Students for Sensible Drug Policy. On another federal level, Bernie Sanders and other Democrats have been unhappy with the DEA's recent decision to refuse to reschedule marijuana last week. The Drug Enforcement Administration had said earlier this year that they would make a decision on whether or not to reschedule marijuana. The decision was made to change nothing, and so marijuana remains grouped with the most harmful substances in America. The DEA claims that there is no currently accepted medical use in the United States for marijuana, and so it will remain on the list of Schedule I drugs. Bernie Sanders, the Democratic presidential candidate, came in second, and many other Americans believe that this is a big fat lie. A majority of Americans now believe the substance should be made legal, and the DEA is clearly ignoring the wants and needs of the American public. Bernie Sanders tweeted after the DEA's announcement that, quote, keeping marijuana in the same category as heroin is absurd. This is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana, end quote. Sanders followed up with another tweet saying, quote, if we're serious about criminal justice reform, we must remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, end quote. Hillary Clinton's campaign issued a statement on August 11th, the day that the DA made this announcement, saying she plans to reschedule marijuana if elected in November. The Drug Enforcement Administration announced its decision to keep marijuana on the list of Schedule I drugs, in the same category as heroin and LSD, but the Clinton campaign thinks the drug serves a higher purpose. Maya Harris, a senior policy advisor to the Clintons' campaign, said in a statement reported by the Denver Post, quote, marijuana is already being used for medicinal purposes in states across the country, and it has the potential for even further medical use. As Hillary Clinton has said throughout this campaign, we should make it easier to study marijuana so that we can understand its potential benefits as well as its side effects, end quote. Clinton seems to disagree with the DEA's decision to keep marijuana on the Schedule I list, and the campaign said if she's elected, she would reclassify the drug to Schedule II substance, like cocaine, which would mean its acceptance that marijuana has for medical use as a treatment. Schedule 2 is not good enough. We need to have marijuana completely removed from the list of controlled substances. Obviously, cocaine is on the list as a Schedule 2 drug, so the federal government believes that cocaine is less harmful than marijuana, or the DEA does at least. So we need to change that just completely, like Sanders had advocated and many of us had, to completely deschedule marijuana, not reschedule it. Out of Washington, D.C., seizures of indoor and outdoor cannabis crops by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration fell slightly in 2015, according to annual data compiled by the Federal Anti-Drug Agency. According to the DEA's Domestic Cannabis Eradication, Suppression, and Statistics Report, the agents confiscated 4.25 million marijuana plants nationwide in 2015. That totals less than the total reported by the agency for the year 2014, which was 4.3 million plants, and continues an ongoing decline in eradication total since 2010, when the agency reported eliminating some 10.3 million plants. As in past years, the DEA's eradication efforts primarily targeted California. Of the total number of plants confiscated nationwide by the DEA in 2015, 62% were seized in California. By contrast, the DEA agents seized fewer than 150 total plants in 3 states, Delaware, New Hampshire, and New Jersey, and reported 0 seizures in Utah. Only about 7% of all the marijuana plants seized by the DEA in 2015 were confiscated from indoor grows. The DEA reported making some 6,300 arrests in conjunction with their cannabis eradication efforts, a total that mirrors the 2014 figures. By contrast, the agency reported making nearly 10,000 marijuana arrests in 2010 and 8,500 arrests in 2011. The agency also reported seizing nearly $30 million in related assets during their confiscation operations. Out of Baltimore, Maryland, a history of marijuana use is not contraindicated in kidney transplantation, according to data published online ahead of print in the journal Clinical Transplantation. Researchers at the University of Maryland School of Medicine evaluated the association between marijuana use and treatment outcomes in 1,225 kidney recipients from 2008 to 2013. Compared to non-users, those patients who tested positive for cannabis experienced no greater risk of adverse outcomes after 1 year. According to the authors of the study, quote, recreational marijuana use should not be considered a contraindication to kidney transplantation. Recreational marijuana use should be systemically evaluated in a larger setting before a decision is made on what, if any, degree of use or abuse should be considered a relative or absolute contraindication, and whether use or abuse should be considered a contraindication. End quote. Hospitals routinely disqualify patients with a history of marijuana use from being eligible for organ transplants, even in jurisdictions that permit its medicinal use under state law. Last year, California lawmakers approved legislation, California Assembly Bill 258, explicitly making such patients eligible for receiving transplants. A prior evaluation of liver transplant candidates reported that marijuana use posed no adverse effects on mortality outcome. A 2015 clinical trial reported that CBD administration was effective at mitigating certain potential adverse effects of stem cell transplantation. The study, recreational marijuana use is not associated with worse outcomes after renal transplantation, appears in this month's edition of Clinical Transplantation. Personally, in our marijuana clinics, we have seen more than 200 patients who have been sentenced to death because they've been taken off the transplant list for testing positive for the use of medical marijuana. I have personally spoken to over 200 people who are now dead who were denied a transplant because of their use of medical marijuana. Now that's evil, folks. So those doctors who are doing that will have to suffer the consequences of their karma. Out of Bismarck, North Dakota, voters will decide this November on a statewide ballot measure to regulate the use and dispensing of cannabis for therapeutic purposes. The North Dakota Secretary of State's office has confirmed that initiative proponents, North Dakota Compassionate Care, submitted a sufficient number of signatures from the registered voters to qualify the measure for North Dakota's November ballot. The act permits patients with eligible debilitating conditions to possess and obtain marijuana, up to 3 ounces, and marijuana-specific preparations under a doctor's written certification. The measure also establishes a statewide regulatory system for the creation of licensed compassionate care centers. Patients or their caregivers who do not live close proximity to such centers may cultivate up to 8 marijuana plants in an enclosed locked facility. Voters in Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, and Montana are also expected to decide on medical marijuana use measures in November. Voters in Arizona, California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Nevada will decide on adult use measures. For more information, just look up North Dakota Compassionate Care. Out of Olympia, Washington, licensed retail facilities in Washington State have sold over $1 billion in marijuana flowers and cannabis-infused products since the regulators first began permitting such sales 2 years ago. The data compiled by the Washington Liquor and Cannabis Board reports that legal sales have now yielded over $275 million in tax revenue for the state of Washington. Last month, state-licensed marijuana sales in Washington totaled $121 million, the highest monthly total reported yet by Washington's Cannabis and Liquor Board. In Colorado, retail sales of cannabis have totaled over $1.1 billion in the past 18 months. In Oregon, where retail marijuana outlets began operating in the past 10 months, regulators are estimating that marijuana sales will yield $43 million in new tax revenue by the year's end. Next story is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Marijuana consumers do not access health care services at rates that are higher than non-users, according to data published online ahead of print in the European Journal of Internal Medicine. Researchers at the Medical College of Wisconsin assessed the relationship between marijuana use and healthcare utilization in a nationally representative sample of 174,159,864 U.S. adults aged 18 to 59 years old. The authors reported, quote, no significant increase in outpatient health care visits and overnight hospital admissions in marijuana users compared to non-users, end quote. They also reported that those who consume cannabis multiple times per day were no more likely to seek healthcare patient services as compared to those who used it less frequently. The authors concluded, quote, contrary to popular belief, marijuana use is not associated with increased healthcare utilization, and there is also no association between healthcare utilization and the frequency of marijuana use, end quote. A previous assessment published in 2014 in the Journal of General Internal Medicine similarly reported that the past use of marijuana within the last 3 years was not associated with adverse effects on health or comorbidity, frequency of ER visits, or hospitalizations. This study, marijuana users do not have increased healthcare utilization, a National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, appears in the European Journal of Internal Medicine. Out of Washington, D.C., 1 in 8 Americans over the age of 18 acknowledge that they currently smoke marijuana, according to a survey data compiled by the Gallup organization. 13% of respondents, including 1 in 5 of those between the ages 18 and 30, say that they use marijuana. That total is nearly double the percentage reported 3 years ago in 2013. Men are more likely than women to admit being current consumers of marijuana. Geographically, those respondents who reside in the western part of the United States are most likely to acknowledge using the plant. 43% of respondents acknowledge having tried marijuana at some point in their life, a percentage that has changed little in the past years. While the number of American adults using cannabis has risen in recent years, youth experimentation of the substance has declined over the past decade. Younger adolescents' disapproval for marijuana has also increased over this same period. Out of San Diego, California, the availability of medical marijuana dispensaries is not positively associated with an increase in the number of adolescents currently consuming cannabis, according to data published online from the Journal of Preventive Medicine. An investigator at the University of California at San Diego assessed the association between marijuana dispensaries and cannabis use habits among young people residing within a 25-mile radius. The authors reported that adolescents' proximity to dispensaries did not influence their current marijuana use habits. The study concluded, quote, "We did not find empirical evidence showing the availability of medical marijuana dispensaries is associated with the current use of marijuana among adolescents. It's also suggestive that dispensaries may not have spillover effects on neighborhood social norms or marijuana availability overall," end quote. Numerous prior studies have failed to associate changes in the legal status of medical marijuana with any causal upticks in youth marijuana use. This study, the availability of medical marijuana dispensaries and adolescent marijuana use, appears in this month's edition of Preventative Medicine. That is the end of our rather lengthy hemp news segment. And now we jump over to Mr. Mark Shark, who's been waiting patiently to play you folks a song. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Paul. How's it going? Good
Pretty
to
well.
see
How are you?
again.
Thanks.
So I got a little number here from Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen.
All right.
This is a classic song about seeds and stems, which you don't see too much of anymore.
No.
Nope, luckily enough. But back in the day,
There's still some stems, but not as many seeds.
not as many seeds. Okay, so this is called Seeds and Stems again, Commander Cody. I'm sitting alone Saturday night watching the Late Late Show. A bottle of wine, some cigarettes, I got no place to go. Well, I saw your other man today. He was wearing my brand new shoes, and I'm down to seeds and stems again, too. It's a sad song. Well, I saw my old friend Bob today from up in Bowling Green. He had the prettiest little girl that I had ever seen. Well, I could not hide my tears at all, 'cause she looked just like you. And I'm down to seeds and stems again, too. Now everybody tells me there's other ways to get high. They don't seem to understand I'm too far gone to try. Now these lonely memories, they're all I can lose. And I'm down to seeds and stems again, too. Oh, here comes the good part, Casper. Well, my dog died just the other day, and he left me all alone. The finance company dropped by today. They repossessed my home. But that's just a drop in the bucket, girl, compared to losing you. And I'm down to seeds and stems again, too. I've got them down to seeds and stems again, blues. There you have it, Paul.
All right. I'm sad. I'm sad. Poor guy lost his dog and doesn't have any cannabis. That's got to
Well,
be
you
a
can
bummer.
always plant the seeds.
That's true, but then you have to wait a while. Homegrown. Hey, we are doing a live show here, and so you're welcome to call in at number that's not on your screen, but it will be soon. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. There it is. You see it. If you have a question for us, give us a call. Hey, welcome, Nikki.
Hi,
It's good to have you back. How many times you been on the show? Like a half dozen or something?
A lot.
And over
I'm
here
very lucky.
is Mr. Don Skacke, and of course the wild and crazy bow-tied man, Casper Leach. If you have questions about ending marijuana prohibition, which we've done here in Oregon and Washington and Colorado and Alaska and ironically Washington, D.C., or medical marijuana or hemp, give us a call at 4442. And I guess we do have a caller. So let's go ahead and take the call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Oh, hi, Paul.
Hey.
I'm just wondering what's going on with your hostile takeover.
It's still going on. We're waiting on court action. There's a court hearing scheduled currently for the 9th of September. And so that would be actually the very first court hearing. So far, there haven't been any court hearings. They went in ex parte and got a temporary restraining order saying that they would suffer harm if they didn't take over my company. Now, the harm they said they would suffer is they wouldn't be able to take the company public. Well, they're not going to be able to take the company public anyway because they fraudulently represented things to the court. And we're going to prove that coming up here real quick. And we can't wait to get these clowns on the stand. But we're going to depose them first. And so far, they haven't given us any discovery whatsoever. We've asked for lots of documentation saying, how did you, because they went into court saying they have a majority of stock, when in fact, all documents I have say they don't. And so they wouldn't have a shareholder meeting. They never sent out any notices to anyone on the board of directors or the shareholders. They basically have fraudulently represented this to the court, and they're in dereliction of their fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders. So I'm going to punish them. I will never surrender. I'm going to take them down. And I know their attorney hates to hear this because he complains about it every time I say it on TV. So take that. Anyway,
so
there
basically,
you have it.
Basically, they are like the Hillary Clinton of the marijuana movement, just a bunch of
No,
lying,
they're
lying
worse than
thugs.
Hillary. Hillary's never done that. I mean, she's done a lot of things, but these people are more like the Adolf Hitler of the marijuana movement, if you ask me.
All right.
But
Well,
thanks.
we all love you, Paul.
I appreciate it. Now, we are setting up a different clinic. I'm hoping that I will take back control of my company. And you can call us for more information at that number there on your screen. It's 1-888-499-THCF or 1-888-499-8423. Now, they have actually gone so far as to say that I should not have a THCF banner here on my TV show, that I have theoretically lost the rights to everything that I've ever had. Now, they formed a company called the Stanford Medical Agricultural and Retail Technologies Company, or SMART. And so they always just use the acronym SMART. They never say what the S stands for, which is Stanford. Well, I guess I have lost the right to use my own name here, according to them. So now I am the activist formerly known as Paul Stanford. Until such time as I defeat these dirty, lying swindlers, I am the activist formerly known as Paul Stanford. I appreciate your support, sir.
Well, I'm with you. I've gotten all my cards through your clinics, and I want to continue doing so.
Thanks. You know, they have actually taken our records under this court order, taken them to a company, a marijuana company up in Canada called Ample Organics, and they have illegally transported them out of the jurisdiction of the U.S. government. So we have a lot of different dirt on these guys, and I hope to take them down. They are counting on the fact that they can out-lawyer me, that their very expensive law firm will grind me into the dust like they do so many people, but they've bitten off more than they can chew this time.
Ha.
Well, go get them, killer.
I am. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for asking. Now, if you have a question out there for us tonight, you can call us at that number on your screen, 503-288-4442. So, Don, you're operating the Northwest Cannabis Club.
I'm involved with the operation there, yes.
Yeah, you're involved with that. I know we were talking about your new publication for cannabis shoppers.
TheDankShopper.com.
And Nikki here operated a cannabis club before the state or the city of Portland forced you to close down, right?
Before the we
Like it was
actually
in January
had the
1st.
Clean Air Act
It was the Indoor Clean Air
that
Act.
really squashed us.
Uh-huh.
Well, I
We
can see-
didn't have a way like Don and Northwest Cannabis Club, Mike over there. They did a wonderful job of making an outdoor situation.
Yeah,
for
they have
people
an
to be
enclosed
at.
private deck. That's like
It's
1,600
wonderful.
square feet. I
And
remember.
Oh, it's beautiful.
unfortunately, the other spot did not have the opportunity to do that. We just didn't have the property for it, and that was unfortunate. During the times that we opened January 2015, made it to January 2016, one whole year, to me that was a great success.
But you were closed down by city regulators based on the Indoor Clean Air Act.
Correct. And then also, we were in a building situation that was an older building that had its own issues that we had to constantly deal with the
Like there was
city
some,
on.
the city wanted you to spend tens of thousands of dollars on seismically retrofitting that building.
Yeah, lots of
It's not your
money.
building either.
No, I didn't own the building. We were just tenants along with the rest of the community. Some of the things that I guess where I'm kind of sitting at now is our facility was built on a medical situation. It was not recreational then here in the state of Oregon. So ours was basically built on growers, caregivers, and patients at that time because they're great facilities for the sociability of things. Unfortunately, you can't go in dispensaries and occasionally run into a grower and get to say, hey, what soil did you use for that strain? But in a club, you get to have all this sociability with growers, with farmers, with concentrates, processors, clinics. I mean, it brings the whole realm of things together for everyone to be social. And it's a huge part of what we are and who we are as people, because it really brings a lot of people out of the house that don't normally or can't normally come out. And it gives them that boost to feel like they're amongst people that are like them. And so it brings that love, and it kind of just
Well, you know,
flourishes
I always
from
looked
there.
at cannabis, and one of its more attractive things when I started using it as a young teenager in Texas in the 70s was the social aspect of sharing the joint and passing it around and having a shared experience with your friends. That's a big part of it. But right now, the state has basically said the Indoor Clean Air Act denies us that ability. And so, Don, you want to tell us how the Northwest Cannabis Club, located at, what is it, 13th
We're at
and Powell?
1195 Southeast Powell.
What's that again?
1195 Southeast Powell.
Okay.
If you know Portland, it's right around the corner from the Aladdin Theater. And there's a huge block that is the Portland Fire Bureau. That huge block.
Oh yeah, you're right by
is,
the Portland Fire Bureau.
It's right. We are the only non-fire bureau piece on that whole block.
Uh-huh.
When we put
interesting
the
you have a
privacy
smoking
fence
area
in,
right
the firemen that worked there actually asked us if we would put a little gate in there for them, but we told them they'd have to use the front door like everybody else.
That's humorous.
But yeah, the Indoor Clean Air Act, we first came into operation back in October. Our first day was the first day of Hempstock. And we didn't know that this was coming. This cannabis kind of got put into the act at the end as a surprise to a lot of people. We were fortunate enough that we had space in our parking lot that we could fence off, make it out of public view. We've since built a couple of covered areas over there and put in some nice fire pits and other accommodations so that, and it's actually funny because we have a staff member that likes to smoke cigars. The owner smokes cigarettes, and of course I don't smoke either. And I don't smoke tobacco products either. So it gives all three of us an opportunity to enjoy the smoke of our choice out on the deck in a social situation.
All right. And so now what other innovations have been going on there at
Well,
the
the
Northwest
thing
Cannabis
is,
Club?
we've had to evolve into a private club. Cannabis is not legal to consume in any public space. So by making it a private club, we are able to accommodate our members. Our memberships are individuals. They're also businesses. So we kind of have a good, broad support base there.
How much are memberships?
Lifetime membership is $20, and you get a real cool card that you must have when you come in the club, or you have to pay to replace it. We have a lot of people come from all over the world so far. And there's
How
two
many
guys
cards
from
are you up
Texas.
to now since October?
Well, I'm member 007. But
So you're licensed to kill?
Our latest, well, no, I'm licensed to smoke. But,
okay.
Our latest number, I think last night I signed in.
You're licensed
2758.
to smoke killer.
I'm licensed to smoke killer. Well put, Paul. Well put. But yeah, the club is up to over almost 2,800 members now, and the new program we have with the Dank Shopper is it's not only a magazine of a buyer's guide for
So
the
you
individual
come out with
consumer.
a new magazine that's called the Dank
The
Shopper.
Dank Shopper. And check us out on dankshopper.com.
Can we call it the Nikki Dank Shopper? I don't know.
Well,
You stole her
Might be
name.
problems there. I'm number 69, by the way, at the
Oh my
club.
goodness!
Oh, I didn't know
I
that's
wonder
what card
who's
I
number
have.
420. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted 333, but we're well past that. I guess.
we are.
That's Satan's nickname as a little boy.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Now you tell
333.
me. Okay.
But it's a great sense of community there. We do comedy nights. We have different industry events there, as well as private sponsored events by individual companies. So it's a great sense of community there.
All right. So you had a private club as well. The other spot that they forced you to close down at the first year was a private club.
Yes,
It's
it
got to be kind of painful because you had this relatively successful new business. I mean, it's more than a little
Trying
painful.
to bring this out.
I don't want to cause you any additional pain here, Nikki, but I thought we should talk about how many other clubs did they close down?
There's been a few other clubs closed that were operating. When the other spot opened up, I just want to really give kudos and shout out to the medical marijuana community here in Portland and Southern Oregon, Central. You guys really supported the other spot. There would not be another spot. It wouldn't have existed without all of you. Everything you gave to the other spot, and you gave and shared amongst your community, and that will never, ever, ever be forgotten by me. I can speak for Big Mike. There's several of us that will never forget you folks. And you really put the sense of community in my life and in my heart. I always, like Paul said, years ago, knew that we shared and we passed it to the right or passed it to the left. But I never really knew that people had more to give than just that. That we all ailed from something in this community, but we've all come from different walks of life and had different jobs and done different things in our lives, that we still have things that we can give to this community and we have things that we can offer. So please don't ever give up on yourselves. Just because the other spot's not there doesn't mean you don't have things to give, doesn't mean you can't be part of things. I do a thing every other Sunday at a private home. We do a dank ass party, excuse me. And we're kind of like a traveling circus. About 120 of us have done this, follow each other through the summertime to private residence because of the public consumption problem, because of what Don was talking about. So unfortunately, it's driven us into homes. There are individuals that have cards today that are 19 and 20 years old and are not welcome, I'm sorry to say, unfortunately, to go to Northwest Cannabis Club. There's no slot for them. Yeah. They're able to buy cigarettes at the store, can't buy alcohol, but have a medical card so they can go in the dispensary and buy that. But then where do they consume it at if they can't go home? So those are things we all need to think about still, that there's age groups in there that are getting left out. And we don't want to run them to the parks. Amanda Fritz, we don't want to have to do that into any of the parks, and we don't want to have the police have to patrol a situation there because these younger adults don't have anywhere to go to consume. That's a problem, and I see it as a huge problem here in this city, and I hope one that we can rectify. And there can be some terms of them being able to go in and partake in some of these clubs also, because they do obtain medical cards. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox.
It's okay. It's okay. That's why you're here, is to talk.
It's in my craw. Just
well, you
that
know, I know
there's that age.
we had a couple of our biggest petitioners for legalization in Oregon history had their final parties at your place. Ray Crystal, he had his last birthday party there, and then
Sure did.
a little celebration. We had John Walsh came to the New Year's Eve party, then passed away a few days later, and we had a little benefit for him there. So your club and that might have been one of the last things that happened. LK, another one of our I can't believe I didn't mention him right off, but
a lot.
You're provided a lot of support for our community, and I thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And just I hope that people follow suit and they don't have to have the other spot or a TOS, but I hope something's built in the future that doesn't necessarily lean towards big business and the corporate side of things, and actually leans towards the medical side of things, because that's where this generated and started from, folks. And I've always been proud of my state, and I want to continue to be proud of my state. Please come out to Hempstock and support us. Please, if you don't have a sponsorship but you have a business, come out and have your business sponsor Hempstock. Be part of something. Be part of a community that's still trying to rise and be here for the people. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
You know, Paul, Nikki's right. It's unfortunate. Under our club model, we are open to any adult 21 and up. We did have it to set it at 21.
So even medical patients under the age of 21.
That's correct. We unfortunately have to exclude anyone under 21. It's what we've come to find to be in the best interest to continue operation of the club and be able to serve the widest possible audience with the lowest possible risk of closure. You know, they've told us that they want to regulate cannabis like alcohol, but I've got to tell you,
you can go into a bar and drink alcohol.
Yeah, but when you go to a bar, they also require you to have a restaurant. They don't want you just drinking all night. They want you to eat some food along the way. And unfortunately, cannabis, you cannot have a restaurant where cannabis is in place. So it's a real problem for us. I mean, we've got
under the current laws.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've
I've
got
been
salty
into restaurants
snacks and
in
crunchy
Canada
munchies and cottonmouth cures, but
right.
You know, we don't serve any alcohol. The landlord was very thrilled to hear that we wouldn't be serving alcohol there. But the fact is that anywhere where alcohol is served is by law a public place.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I'm not sure if dispensaries really want to be handled like alcohol, because if you're a bud tender and somebody's too high and you don't cut them off and they get into their car and have an accident, that means you can be sued.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, you know,
even though if somebody's too high, usually they're a safer driver.
Yeah, but those who are bitching, we want to be like alcohol. You need to take into consideration some of the silly laws that are out there in the books right now before you jump up and down and say this is what you want. Because if that's what you want, you better be able to suck that one down too.
And most of the bars in this city too, just FYI, Don, and for everyone else, most of the bars in this city can have performances from people under the age of 21, can have them come in the bar up until 10 and 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
It is actually the law. So it'd be kind of interesting to see that if we want to go a direction of alcohol or we want to go this direction, that it'd be kind of nice to see that even for the underage card holders. Yeah. Excuse me.
And how do you know if I'm too high to be cut off?
Exactly. Well, this is the conversation I had with the gentleman the other night.
Clear with an alcohol user, by the way.
Right.
It's
But
very
it's
clear.
Very clear. Sure.
I don't think you see an increased likelihood of accidents with people who are using marijuana. I think that.
Well, when you're used to running a bar, you're used to gauging someone's impairment based on their alcohol consumption. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're a good shopkeeper, you'll notice when someone is drinking without eating and all that other stuff. When you throw that situation in with cannabis, now you've got people that are well versed with identifying alcohol intoxication, but they're not having any experience with the elevation that comes from cannabis. I refuse to say that anyone can be intoxicated from cannabis, because that means they've smoked enough to die.
Well, I can certainly tell you there's been a couple of times when I've had edibles that after I've had my edibles, I've been too high to even walk around my apartment, let alone get behind the steering wheel.
You can definitely.
But if I'm sitting in a club, and I've ate those edibles, and I get into my car,
you got to call a taxi.
Well,
Right.
how does he know though? But how does he know? See, but a bartender
We'll know.
We'll
know.
So that is one of those things.
We'll
you
just
think,
slap you
Well,
silly.
Casper, actually, I want to tell you, Nikki, congratulations on the year you were with us there. I've enjoyed the other spot many times, as you know.
Yes, thank you.
We are coming up on our 1-year anniversary. We signed the lease October 3rd, so we'll have a party then. But it was the first day of Hempstock was our first day.
October 16th,
open.
17th, something like
Yep.
that.
So we're looking forward to that.
All right.
But in that time, we are coming up on 1 year with 0 calls to the police, 0 fights, and 0 arrests for public intoxication.
Cool.
And I guarantee you that if we were allowed to have alcohol where cannabis is served, we would not have that record.
That's right.
Let me
And
ask you
if that
again.
was the case,
Yeah.
alcohol would not get the blame. They would blame it on cannabis that
That's right.
those people were a
That's right.
problem.
What's the address there again?
It's 1195 Southeast Powell. It's on the northwest corner of 13th Place and Powell. It's the right there between Powell and the Orange Max line,
All right.
and just east of Milwaukee.
So we are taking callers, and we've got a caller who's been patiently standing by. Let's bring that caller in. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Hello?
Hello.
Hey. Hi.
Listen to the phone because there's a delay on the TV.
Okay.
Hey, you have a question or comment for us?
Yes. Hi, Paul. This is Ray down at Grants Pass.
Hey, Ray, it's good to hear from you. Welcome home.
Well, good to see. Thank you. Good to see you guys.
My best to
Waving
Linda
back
down
at
there. How are those plants I gave you?
You. Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Good.
Okay, so here's kind of what's going on. Of course, I'm a medical patient, and we seem to be protected by state law and everything, in kind of a protected class. But yet, what's happened is down here in Grants Pass, I think they've got a little concerned about the possibility of recreational is my guess. But anyway, they seem to have. I got ticketed from the city for growing my medicine outdoors. And so at any rate, so that's what we're doing right now. And
Did they
I
make
mean,
you pull those plants, or?
they're going way beyond, they're trying to go beyond or above the state law. I know that. I feel that.
Well, let's talk more about that, and I'll be calling you privately to get more information.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Ray.
Okay, bud.
All right.
All right, bye.
Well, we are just about out of time. We got a little video we're going to run and then talk a little bit to Mark Shark in just a minute. But is there anything you'd like to say in closing, Nikki?
I would say I'm happy to have everybody be invited out to Hempstock again, September 24th, 25th.
That's right. September
I'm lucky
24th,
enough to be
25th. We had a
the
poster up for that.
hospitality manager for Paul in Hempstock, and I absolutely adore what I do. This is my 8th year with Hempstock, and I hope to see everyone out there partaking in a great situation and a great community event.
Thank you. So,
Paul, I want to tell everybody that on September 7th between 2 and 6 in the afternoon, I want to invite every can of business that is looking for help to come to our free job fair. This is a free event for employers, a free event for employees. If you've got a resume, bring it in. We'll have some generic applications there. But we have a lot of can of businesses that are looking to either hire now or hire in the near future. They want to interview you. They want qualified candidates that are good people that will show up and do a responsible job. So come down September 7th to the club. The club is open 7 days a week from 4 to midnight. And we have an event calendar at our website from our markets in Washington, northwestcannabismarket.com.
okay. And Casper, you want to give a plug for your extensive network of
I
radio
do.
programs?
Time for Hemp is dedicated to making marijuana great again, and we want to create jobs here in America in the hemp industry. So we need to make it great. We're making it huge. I hope you know that. Making a huge difference here in America on the voting scene just by getting out. So by getting involved, I think it's time that we also build a wall around the DEA and make the DEA pay for it. But we'll talk about that later when we have time. And everybody who thinks marijuana should be illegal, we need to round up all those illegal people and put them in Jamaica, and then have them be vetted again to come back into our country after they've learned the necessity of ending prohibition. Go to timeforhemp.com to hear more about that with me and my host that are making a huge, huge, huge difference around the world in the marijuana movement. Timeforhemp.com. Thank you, Paul, for the shameless plug.
Thank you. Hey, we have a little video we're going to run here, and we'll be back in just a moment with Mr. Mark Sharp. Here it comes.
Wild seed, life, seeding life, and the earth is our mother, and the land is her flesh, and the water is her milk, and the oil is her blood, and we are her children. In this land we come from, of this earth we're made of, with us as future ancestors, given responsibility to live. We are the future we bring. How can the land take care of us if we don't take care of the land? Same with the sky and the air we breathe. It's time to remember tomorrow in the reality of what we reap, what we sow. The reality is in the land, and life is in the seed. Seed has memory of life. Wild seed memories, keeping alive, up close, face to face with the destroyers and their synthetic seed without memory, toxic poisoning land and minds, disregarding well-being into maximizing profit, abandoning children to massive debts, making the price of freedom unaffordable at the expense of the many to benefit the few. Like a spreading mad human disease, chaosing minds with liars' promises, seeding old fears with new fears, living in the world of the money man. It's time to think our way out of what we believed our way into. How can we show respect to life if we don't use our common sense? Wild seed, life, seeding life, and the earth is our mother, and the land is our flesh, and the water is her milk, and the oil is her blood, and we are her children.
So Mark, that was the very last live performance that John Trudell gave back on October 16th of last year.
Last year at Hempstock, yeah.
And then he passed away just about 6 weeks later. He did some other things out that weren't live. He recorded some things after that.
We have a new album in the works. John's final performances that we're almost done with. It should be done in a couple of months, and it's going to be great. His performances were really miraculous.
So you're going to be at our Hempstock Festival along with the rest of the Bad Dog Band.
Bad Dog
Ricky
will be there.
Eckstein and
Joel Raphael will
Joey
be coming,
Raphael.
a good friend of ours, to do some of John's poems with us.
Right.
And that'll be Rick Eckstein and Quiltman, myself, and Chris Miller will be subbing for Billy Watts. Billy's off doing something else.
All right.
But really looking forward to it.
We are too. So the Hempstock comes up on September 24th and 25th.